So let's first present today's agenda. So first of all, I will give a bit more context on this webinar by shortly introducing ePLANET project and the stakeholder forums we are organizing in its scope. Just after, I will present the Cities Energy Saving Sprint campaign from the Covenant of Mayors Europe, and also the key takeaways of the 2023 conference. Then we'll have a presentation by Viken County on behavioural change for energy efficiency, during which Christian Kolkner will present the main learnings of the ENCHANT project. Following that, Gerard Laguna from Simne will introduce ePLANET platform, a tool to monitor energy savings at the municipal level. And finally, we'll have a Q&A session on the presentations, followed by an open discussion on energy savings introduced by the perspective of two of our pilot regions, so Crete and Zlin region. So let me start with the presentation of ePLANET project. So the project has 4 main objectives, which are to create a transparent and coherent harmonized information sharing platform and a database of energy transition plans, which includes best practices and indicators of energy transition measures. And Gerard will give you more information on this later. In addition to the creation of the platform, our aim is also to develop a collaborative framework for the development and updating of energy transition plans, and to consolidate and institutionalize a network including multi-level stakeholders. So one of the ways to entertain this network is through the stakeholder forums. So the stakeholder forums are a series of online meetings with the aim to share early results of the project with potential users or beneficiaries. So now that you know a bit more about ePLANET project and the stakeholder forums, we can dive into our agenda for today. So I will put my Covenant of Mayors Europe hat to share some learnings of the Cities Energy Saving Sprint campaign so far. So, following the European Commission's first communication at the beginning of March 2022, our political board addressed a letter to the European Commission Vice President Frans Timmermans to demonstrate the Covenant Europe's support and commitment to the implementation of the REPowerEU plan. So this letter included 14 recommendations to get Europe on a firm ground toward peace and climate neutrality. The letter underlined that cities are key players when there is an urgent need to take emergency energy-saving measures, but also to plan for energy consumption reductions in the short and mid-term. And later in May of the same year, 2022, in the scope of the publication of the REPowerEU plan, the Cities Energy Saving Sprint campaign was launched as a joint initiative from the Covenant of Mayors Europe, the European Commission, in particular DG ENER, and the European Committee of the Region. The main aim of the campaign is to encourage and support cities and municipalities to reduce their energy consumption by providing tips on quick and low-cost measures that they can implement to increase energy savings. It also provides examples of actions taken by cities with the idea to foment local debates on how energy demand can be decreased, both in our cities and in our private lives. So more concretely, the campaign focused on 3 main activities. So first of all, a repository gathering examples of actions undertaken by European cities in several sectors. So mainly, the sectors are mainly heating of spaces and water, lighting, mobility, and campaign and communication. So overall, you can get inspired by 101 heating actions, 76 activities related to lighting, 23 communication and campaign initiatives, and 50 actions tackling other topics such as teleworking, public appliances and facilities, water savings, and training of different stakeholders, and many other activities. So all these actions were summarized in a toolkit that includes a reduced list of suggestions on tips on how cities can reduce their energy consumptions. So I already presented to you the main topics, but I can say them again. So heating of spaces and water, lighting, mobility, and campaigns and communication. So we also gathered videos from European mayors or deputy mayors that share the message of why the campaign is important and why they are promoting it, and most importantly, what the cities are doing to face the energy crisis. We have a dedicated playlist on the YouTube channel of the Covenant of Mayors Europe. I can hear an echo. Okay, I think now it's better. So let me go back to the videos. So we have a dedicated playlist on the YouTube channel in case you want to watch them, and all the documents of the campaign, including the toolkit and the repository, are available on our website. Then on the 30th of March 2023, was the annual Covenant of Mayors Conference, and this year it focused on the topic of cities on the front line of the energy crisis. It put the spotlight on cities' efforts to reduce energy consumption and accelerate the energy transition in front of the current energy crisis by giving the floor to 9 mayors to showcase what their cities are doing. So I will go a bit on the dive a bit on the main takeaways of each panel session. So there were 2 sessions. So on the first one, they all presented the diversity of emergency measures that they've put in place to face the crisis. So the actions ranged from lowering temperatures in municipal buildings and switching to more efficient public lighting, to accelerating building refurbishments and promoting sustainable mobility, but also facilitating the creation of energy communities, as well as raising awareness with citizens and providing energy-saving advice. So during the event, the importance of ensuring multi-level governance, which is also a topic we tackle in ePLANET project. So multi-level governance in today's instability and crisis was also very much highlighted during the event. And mayors called upon the EU to put pressure on national governments to involve local decision makers and stakeholders in national climate and energy policy making. They emphasized that cities are key to reach national government targets. Mayors also called on the EU to consider more direct funding because many cities find themselves blocked by national legislations and lack of funds. So overall, the crisis enhanced the urgency of accelerating the EU energy transition to build a better future for the next generation. On the second panel, mayors underlined that popular support is key to implement these measures, and local governments are the best placed to successfully engage with citizens. They can directly implement the EU Green Deal on the ground and engage citizens in the process, and by doing so, put citizens at the heart of the European energy transition. Despite the success of Europe in responding to energy demands and filling up gas reserves for this past winter, the situation for upcoming winters is not so clear. Cities must persist in their effort to reduce energy consumption in the long term. And that was also the center of the discussions during the conference. Long-term efforts in building a clean, affordable, and secure energy system is once again giving cities a key role, especially in reaching targets in building renovation and energy efficiency. So in the end, cities many cities joined the sprint and have implemented a range of actions from lowering temperatures to adopting more efficient street lighting, sustainable mobility, raising citizens' awareness, and providing energy-saving advice. So in this slide, you can see a quote from CESNA's Councillor for Environment, Francesca Lucci, acknowledging the reduction of public consumption by 28% over the last winter, thanks to the installation of new systems in public buildings and to communication campaigns. So now what's next for the sprint? Based on last winter's success, a new phase is launched, encouraging cities to maintain and take new measures to tackle the energy and climate crisis. So on this slide, you can see a recap on the main measures cities can take in winter, but also during summer. The list is, of course, not exhaustive. You can take many more measures. So on the heating and cooling of spaces, you can encourage an adaptive thermal set point and or deploying smart thermostats in public buildings. Concerning lighting, you can adapt the systems and use LED lightning bulbs, but also ban or reduce shops lights and electric billboards. On the mobility aspect, you can promote car-free days, encourage work from home days, ride sharing, and soft mobility overall. You can also subsidize fares and passes for public transport, reduce speed limits, and close some areas to traffic. Other measures can also focus on awareness raising through communication campaigns and provide citizens and businesses with energy saving advice. Finally, you can also, if you can also take measures on bills, which will have effects on bills. For example, by using dynamic energy pricing and selective unplugging. So with this slide, finally, if you want to know more about what cities are doing to translate the Green Deal into local action, I will recommend you to keep updated about our next big event under the Belgium presidency of the Council. So it will take place at both the European Parliament for policy debates and political aspects, and at the Committee of the Region for different sessions on different topics, from climate neutrality to circularity and jobs. So the citizens and stakeholder engagements and our three pillars, so adaptation, mitigation, and energy poverty, will be cross-cutting and transversal aspects of the discussions. And we are heading to the end of my presentation. On my last slide, you can find useful links in case you look for more information. And thank you very much for your attention. I think that now I will leave the floor to Christian to give you a presentation more on behavioral change, which completes very well the measures I just presented. So Christian, the floor is yours. You can share your presentation.
Yes, I will try to get it full screen now. Let me see. Yes, now it should work.
Perfect. Yeah.
So thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to present from the ENCHANT project, which I've been coordinating the last 3.5 years. So we are in the last 2 months of the project. And this slide here gives you the overview of what we were doing. So the point of departure was that there are a lot of behavioral interventions into making citizens more energy efficient that have been tested in laboratories and small-scale pilots. So behavior scientists have done a lot of research. How could people be influenced? What kind of communication measures work? And what we wanted to find out in the ENCHANT project is what happens if you scale up these communication attempts. So we wanted to find out, do they still work when we use them not on a handful of people or hundreds of people, but millions of people? We wanted to find out which communication channels we can use to get these out. So we wanted to work with both municipalities, but also energy providers and NGOs, and test if different communication channels have different effects. And we wanted to see also which of the interventions and intervention packages that were testing work for which group of people in our population there. And then in the end, we are now creating a web tool. We call it now the ENCHANT Wizard, which is a tool designed to give, for example, municipalities a way to target intervention campaigns to certain groups of people. So what the tool in the end should give you is that people can, in a way, diagnose with answering on a very limited number of questions what kind of people they are, and then the tool would recommend you, okay, these kind of people, they would, for example, respond well to what we call a social norms intervention, where we tell them what other people around them do. Or these people here, they might respond well to a competition. So we tested 7 different intervention types in the project: information, giving feedback, communicating social norms, but also different ways of framing the problem as either an individual problem or a collective problem, and so on. So we had a number of different interventions that we wanted to test, and we had different user partners, as I said, and we also looked at different behaviors, which are very much in line with what you presented before. So we looked at energy efficiency investments, like upgrading the insulation standard of a house or buying more energy efficient appliances, but also household heating, transportation, cooling behavior, and more everyday behaviors. And we tried a lot of different communication channels. And today I will focus on just a very small part of the results of the project. So in total, we had about, we had 15 different pilots where we had different combinations of our intervention techniques. And in total, we reached out to several million people in Europe. So we had 6 countries that we were focusing on. We were in Norway, we were in Germany, in Romania, in Austria, in Italy, and in Turkey. And then we tried different types of interventions with different user partners. So in terms of municipalities, we had with us Viken County, the largest county in Norway. And we had Cluj-Napoca in Romania, and we had the metropolitan area of Izmir. And all of them used their ways of communicating with citizens to promote participation in our pilots. What I want to focus on now in the remaining 10 minutes I have is an online intervention platform that we designed during the course of the project, because we learned at some point that if we want to test all these different interventions against each other, we need to have a way to provide them in an automatic way so that the user partners are not overburdened with like rolling out the campaign. And we also wanted to have a certain control over who gets which intervention, and that we can randomize and really test the effects. So it's an automatized platform at the moment in 6 languages, where people go through a 5-week intervention period to reduce their electricity consumption. Some of the other pilots were also about transportation behavior and so on, but this one is only about reducing electricity consumption. And during that time, people were answering surveys. One a bit larger survey in the beginning, giving us information about their background, both structural, socio-demographic, but also psychological influence variables on energy consumption. And then 6 short weekly surveys where we just captured how people see the development of some of the key drivers during the 6 weeks or 5 weeks of intervention. We designed 12 different intervention packages, so 6 different interventions and then combined in different ways. And we also had 2 control groups, which was important for us to be able to find out what the effect of our interventions are as compared to all the other things that go on in society at the moment. And the whole thing was designed as a randomized control trial so that we could be sure that our effects that we see are not caused by that people were self-assigning themselves to certain interventions. So in total, 6 weeks of participation, but 5 weeks where people received intervention. So we had a baseline week in the beginning. We had a week at the end where we measured the outcome of our interventions. And then we had 3 weeks in between where we gave people different types of interventions. And what I can show you here are results of this trial of different types of interventions in these data here are based on responses mostly from Norway and from Germany. Now, at the moment, we are finalizing the data collection in Romania so that we get 3 countries to build on. We also learned in the project that it's very hard in some of the other countries to recruit people to participate in such a campaign, mostly because the energy culture is very different in different countries. So what you see here is what kind of variables have an effect on people's energy or electricity consumption during the weeks. And what you see is that, well, of course, most of the data collection happened in last winter. The temperature outside has a substantial effect. So the more cold it was during the days that we did our tests, the more people used energy, especially if they heated with electricity. And like more than half of the sample here is from Norway, so there a lot of electricity is used for heating. So that's a big impact on people's electricity consumption. Also, warming water has an impact on electricity consumption. Here it looks like warming water with electricity is actually having a negative effect, but that is just created by that every increase in heating degree days has actually a substantial impact here. So for people that heat with electricity, that heat their water with electricity, this has a big impact on their electricity consumption. Air conditioning, not so much important in the period that we looked at and in the countries where we have data from. That might look different the more south in Europe you get and the more to summer you get. What we also see is that the electricity price actually had an impact on electricity consumption. So the more expensive electricity was, the less of it people used. So people respond to these signals, price signals. And we know that also from general statistics that the high electricity prices in many countries last winter had an effect on people's consumption. What you also see is that charging an electric vehicle at home has, of course, an impact on electricity consumption, but also that household size, controlling for all of the other factors, has a negative impact. So the more people live in one household, the less they consume per capita per week. So the numbers you see for electricity consumption are per capita per household member per week. And then we come to the interesting part. The interesting part is how do our interventions and how do our psychological variables impact electricity consumption. So one thing that we see here is that people's intention to save energy actually make a difference. It's not a big difference, but the more people are motivated to save electricity, the more they also succeed in doing that. And then if we give them information, like targeted information, tips on how they can save electricity with easily implementable things they could easily do at home without investing too much, then we see that this also has quite a substantial effect. So they save 12 kilowatt hours per person per week if they get information how to do that. And that sums up to something like 300 kilowatt hours that people in Viken County, for example, were able to save per 4-person family per month. So that's quite substantial. We also see that some of the other interventions have an effect. So if people are getting an invitation for a competition and they accept that intervention, so they accept the invitation for a competition, then this also leads to that they are motivated to save electricity and that they succeed in doing that. But this is a bit counterbalanced by people that are invited for a competition and do not accept this this invitation, because then they have almost a negative effect of that. So it almost increases significantly. So the two things that we see overall over Germany and Norway are that competition has an effect, but also give people tips on how they can save electricity is still making a difference. And then if you look more into the details, if you look into how was the situation in Norway and how was it in Germany, then you see also quite big differences here. So in Norway, the intentions to save electricity were much more important than in Germany, because also the amount of electricity consumed is much bigger per person per week in Norway than it is in Germany. The information intervention was massively more important in Norway than it was in Germany. In Norway, we also see an effect of communicating how other people succeed in saving electricity. If you can show people that other people save electricity too, that obviously motivates people in Norway, not so much in Germany. If you look at feedback interventions, that means looking at or getting some information about how you self-develop over the different weeks. This also motivated Norwegian participants in our study, but not so much German participants. Whereas the Germans were more responding to the competition in that we introduced, at least if they accepted it. But that worked also for Norwegians to a certain degree. Or if they accepted what we in my discipline call a commitment, so that they make a statement that, yes, I want to make an effort for the next week to save electricity. That was something that worked in Germany, but it didn't work in Norway. The last thing I want to show is that in Norway, at least, where people have access to smart meters and many people have an app on their phone where they could follow their hourly electricity consumption, how a part of the campaign that focused on moving away from the peak hours impacted people's electricity consumption behavior. And what you can see here is that in the first 2 weeks of our campaign, before we communicated about shifting away from the peak hours, people had the by far largest peak in the evening hours when you prepare food, when you do washing and so on. But after a couple of weeks, this evening peak was reduced quite a bit. But what is also interesting is that people are not really able to move this consumption towards the low peak hours during the night or during the day, because that would require that a part of this would be done automatically, which is already happening for people that charge their electric cars. Much of that is happening automatically during the night, and that you can see in the higher peaks during the night hours, which is quite unusual in comparison to other countries. But apparently people are not really able to move away from the peak hours if they don't have automatic technology that makes that choice for them. So I hope this could give you some taste of what we did in the ENCHANT project. Now we are in the last 2 months working on developing this energy wizard further. And the energy wizard, as I said, is a tool that, based on the data that we collected in the platform, tries to identify groups of people and then tries to find out which intervention or interventions work best for these groups of people. And then it would provide you with a way of easily identifying which group people would belong to, and then give you a recommendation how to target these people. I would also like to highlight 2 events that are still happening in the ENCHANT project. One is that we participate in the ENLIT Energy Fair in Paris, and we'll be there and present more results from the project. And then we also have a whole webinar dedicated to the ENCHANT Energy Wizard on the 7th of December, and more information is to come. And I end here because I've probably used a bit more than 15 minutes already.
Thank you very much, Christian. Very interesting presentation. I have some questions, but first we will go with the Gerard presentation and gather all the questions at the end of the 3 presentation. So Gerard, if you can share, yeah, perfect. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Nice presentation, Christian. I'm going to follow your path because both presentations are much linked than I thought initially, so they are in the same topic. However, Christian have presented us how they use the data to inform all the customers, all the people, in order to take decisions about their consumption. And our tool mainly goes by collecting this information, make it available to institutions, to people, in order for them to make some decisions, not only in their behavior, also in more long-term perspective, in order to make changes to their buildings, and also they can consider changing their behavior by the analysis that they are making. So in the presentation, we are going to explain just a little bit in which ways we can gather data, because this presentation is quite wild, because there are many casuistics of how data is presented and is available in many countries or many institutions or different regions even. Then first analysis, how we can visualize this data. Then if we want to go further than just visualizing the data and make some comparisons, we can make some data treatments in order to make some more deep analysis of these tools, make the analysis of this, and then to compare it, you can make a benchmarking between buildings or between the same building even, in order to know what's happening or what we have achieved with the changes we have made in the buildings. First of all, the data gathering. For example, we can gather data if there is any energy accounting. So there are many municipalities, many regions that they are achieving some energy accounting already, and they have the accounting of the energy consumption of their buildings or the entire region. There are many cases, but focusing on buildings, there are many regions, municipalities that they are already getting this data. So when we find the case that they already have this data, we don't have to make any treatment, just to import it to our tool. Other cases could be data from the DSOs, from the distributor system operator, could be gas, electricity, or whatever DSO that is operating in the region. In all this data, as in the ones before, we have some data that is identifying which building it is, and also we have their consumption. These are like some ideal cases that you have the availability of this data. However, when we don't have this information directly, that these first ones were directly energy, what the customers have sure is their billing, the billing of the energy that they are using. So through the billing, it can be made some analysis and extract the energy consumption. Here, the data is there. However, many times it's not as easy as taking as anyone can think, because we have in the billing, we have the casuistic that there is the billing dates, that the billing is made in 1 month, but the real measurements of this energy consumption could be, and normally it is, in different period. So the billing that was received and paid on January probably is the consumption from November, December, or autumn, or in the autumn, depending of the region. It could take long time, but you need this period, that this usually is indicated in the billing, and the amount of consumption that is placed in this is consumed in this supply point. Then, if we just have the billing, or we have some monthly data, or we don't have any way of getting this data, there are also other ways, that is gathering directly the data from the building. In this case, you have to install it, and there is an intervention, physical intervention, and also an associated cost to install all these devices and to gather this data, that this could be made automatically. Also, if you want to go further, and after your analysis start to control the building, so affecting the user behavior, and also, as Christian was presenting, put some automatization, that maybe the heating could start in an office building, could start to heat up when the electricity is cheapest at night, and pre-warm the building in order to solve the peak. So these things, as Christian have presented, to make it automatically, this could be made by installing some devices to communicate with the building. And in this case, that this is a use case that we make with another project. In this case, preheat the building when the electricity was cheaper, connecting to the HVAC system. More data that we can gather in order to analyze what's happening in our building. If we have applied any energy efficiency measures, we need this data in order to evaluate which is the gains that we have made in applying these energy efficiency measures. So we had a building, we identify that there is a gap, there is a need of improvement, and we track what have been made, when have been made, and then we can also expand our KPIs in order to evaluate the savings that have been made using this energy efficiency measure, if we include lifetime, the investment that have been done, and also it can be evaluated the expected annual energy savings. Because normally when a public building is refurbished and some actuations have been made, it have been done some studies about this could present a 10% or whatever energy savings made in this building. So these are things that can be evaluated, but you need to have some track of this data in order to evaluate what's happening there. Once you have all the data or the data that you have available, a first step is the first one is just to visualize it. So we have some buildings, we have some energy consumption. This is the platform we have been developing in the project, and in this case is in the Slim region, all the regional buildings that we have, all the georeference of all them and all the information about building and their consumption. And the first part is to visualize what's happening. So this is one example of one building. This is a sports building in which we can see that most of its consumption is gas. So we can make some analysis that this will depend a lot in the use of this building. So we have to take in account what we are analyzing. So as this is an sports center, their main consumption is heat for winter, and in summer it will be consumption from water, from showers and the supplies that the users need for it. And then the electricity, it's taking a really small part of it. But we can go a bit further in seeing what's happening in our buildings, and we can compare directly with the consumption from the other buildings in the same year. With this, we can see, for example, which buildings have been more have been changed their heating systems or the systems to electric, because some of them they are full electric, and what could be our priorities in order to actuate in their buildings. So to have an overview of what's happening in all them, between all them. And then it can also be aggregated, all this data, and have an idea of how all the groups of buildings are behaving, and then compare it to individual buildings, because could be that here you identify some targets or some buildings which help you reach your target before. So this is just an inspection of the data, visual inspection of the data, that just for seeing that, you can already identify where you can start to go, because at least you are informed of what you have, your actual situation. Then we can go further. So you can make an visual inspection. But if you have some large amount of data or some time series, some historical data, you can start to work in treating all this data and get more deep evaluation of the buildings and the situations that you have done. So to make that, they should be taken in account some different some different properties of the data that you have. For example, if we want to model a building or we want to analyze this building, it's really different to analyze the building with holidays and without holidays. So we usually want to analyze the building when someone is operating it. The holiday days that maybe is closed, or maybe it's working in the other side. It's open in the holiday days and in the weekdays is not used. This will depend a lot in the use that has done in that has the building. So this is something that should be considered. So to know where the holidays are and treat them apart. Weekends, holidays of the days, of the national holidays, and also in this data we have to take in account that normally data is not treated, is not pre-treated. Then we can have outliers and we can have disruptive periods. Which could be a disruptive period? A disruptive period, for example, could be COVID time. We have all of us consider really clear that during COVID, during the hard month of the COVID, many public buildings were closed, so they had no activity, and this is no holidays. This is not something that is noted anywhere. So, for example, we have developed some algorithms that they detect when we have some disruptive period that could detect COVID or could detect other things. For example, if a building is in refurbishment, we can detect the lower in their consumption because it's closed. And then, one moment, please. Sorry, I had some background noise. And with these disruptive periods, you can identify and discard these periods that when you analyze your building, this is data that is going to deviate and could deviate your conclusion of the study that you have been making. And then what we can continue doing with our data when we have like a clear identification, a clear data set, what we have. So we can apply some transformations of the data that we have. We can make some interpolations so to know the temperature that we have outside our building. This is some data that is important in order to consider the efficiency or the energy use by the need that the building it have. As it's more colder outside, or it's more or it's the temperature rise in summer, the energy consumption for cooling and for heating will be higher. And this is something that could be measured. Normally it's measured by degree days. So how many days you are out of and how many degrees per day you are out of the temperature of balance. Then, for example, knowing the temperature from outside, you can detect which is the set point temperature of your buildings. So you can take in account the degree days that you have in your building, and with this detect, make a correlation of which is the point in which you are starting to cool and you are starting to heat. And from this, you can extract this balanced temperature, which will help you to identify without having any internal measures, have an idea. It's not going to be the actual value. If the internal set point is changing, it's going to be something close to the mean value of what you are using. So it's not something that will be exact and you are taking just one value, because instead you are overcomplicating your calculations, and you can have this heating balance, so heating balance temperature or cooling balance temperature, which will help you, for example, proposing to change the climatization temperature to a higher or lower in order to reduce your consumption. Also, what it can be done in order to separate holidays and not holidays is clustering the days. So here we have some examples where we can detect the normal daily load curve of the consumption of the building, and it's really different between when it's a working day or it's holidays or the building is used or not. And then when we have all that, we can go to the analysis tools. So there are many models that can help in order to analyze all the buildings. When you talk to any specialized agent, you are going to have to hear neural networks, deep learning. There are a lot of tools. However, at the end, there are many tools that they are coming out constantly. So we will not have track of all what is there. But at the end, there are 3 types of models in big groups. So the first one is called white models. The white models is when we have all the information from the building, and when I say all the information, is that we know all the area of the rooms, the characteristic of the walls, and we can properly simulate the behavior of the building. This is normally an ideal case. We are not going to find that in when we make studies, a large study of many buildings, because this data is usually not available. This could be like the most accurate in terms of allowing us to simulate directly the change of, if we want to change the windows of a building, we can change this in this model and we will see how is it changing. However, this is like a wish, because normally you don't have that. The opposite is the black box approach, in which you give in this model, you give it the information. For example, neural networks are black box models. So you are taking these models and you are giving this information, and you don't know exactly what is making with the data, but it's giving you some estimation of the consumption of the building or the temperature of your building. And between these 2 approaches that are quite different, one is physics-based and the other is just data-based, with no information about the physics that have behind, there is something called the gray box, which is the one that have in the middle, in which is considering which is the physics effect that is placed in the buildings in order to cool, heat, consumption, the energy consumption of the building. And using this physics knowledge, use it together with the data in order to fit the values that should have according to the physical effects that you are taking in account. So this is a balance between both. Normally we use these ones. However, for behavior, for analyzing the behavior of the users, this is something that is not based in physical in a physical model. So this usually is black box. Use it with black box modeling. But depending of what you are making, you decide where you can place yourself and use these tools. And then when we have all these tools, if we have a simple a model that we have a building and we have some data, in order to compare it with other buildings, we can have the energy consumption of this building from a period. We can have this energy consumption by area, that this is going to be more indicative for comparing with other buildings. Then we have the same with cost, for the absolute climatization cost and by square meter. the same for emissions. And then, which is also interesting to note between buildings, is the weather conditions, in which it can be calculated in heating degree days and cooling degree days, which are this difference of temperature that you have from your target temperature inside the building with the temperature that you have outside. And if we have an energy efficiency measure, we have one building, but it has some significant changes in between. So it can be evaluated, make a model of the building before this energy efficiency measure and after these energy efficiency measures, and then these two buildings, let's say the one without the energy efficiency measure and the one with the energy efficiency measure, you cannot compare directly the energy used. So in order to compare them, you need to make the models and apply the same weather conditions, because without applying the same weather conditions, you are not doing a fair comparison of what have you applied in your building. And the KPIs used are the same. You have energy, cost, and emissions as used before. In this case, using the weather have no sense, because if you are making the model and you are applying a standard year, the heating degree days and cooling degree days are going to be the same, because you're comparing the building exactly in the same conditions. That's the point of making this evaluation. And to conclude, I have been talking about a lot of the data, all that, is in whatever point are you finding yourself, if you have more or less data, you can make you enable yourself in decision making by just having the data and visualize it. So know where are you, what are your consumption, where can you make an actuation, and if you get more precise data or you get more data, you can start to use more tools, compare between buildings, make the models of the buildings and compare when you have made the energy efficiency actuation, and maybe could then consider if you apply that in another building or not. So as you're getting more complex, you can make more things, but with just the billing, that is something that everyone have, you can start to make some decisions in that. That's the point of my presentation today, that you can go ahead and decide, make some decisions according to the data that you have. And that's it. I give the floor to Nade again.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Gerard,
time.
for your presentation. I would suggest now to open the floor for questions. So I don't know if anyone has questions. Please raise the hands. Otherwise, maybe I can start with a question for you, Christian. It was really interesting, your presentation on behavioral change and how it works. And I was wondering, what do you call competition? I don't remember exactly what was written, but it's competition something. Could you please give more details on that? Because the other ones, campaign, social norms, commitments, was quite clear, but this one, I have doubts.
Okay, so what we used is a competitive element. So we asked people in the second week that, well, wouldn't it be fun to like compete in your energy savings with other people that are motivated? And if people said, yes, I want to do that, then they were in the competition group, and then they would see in the dashboard of their version of the net site a ranking list of people in the same group they are in, and where they are in this ranking. So we had some challenges with data protection. So it's only a code there. So we are not allowed to say that, okay, this is that person, but we say that, okay, here we have participant number 457 and you are 813, and 457 saved so much more than you did in this week. So now you're on the second place or on the third place. And then the next week you would get an updated version of this list. So that's what we call a competition here. Some of our user partners used also prizes to motivate people to participate in the campaign. For example, Viken County had a number of prizes like a bicycle or an EV charger or something like that that people could win if they participated for the whole 5 weeks. But that's not the competition that I was talking about as an intervention. So this competition was only about being higher in the ranking list in a way.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And maybe Gerard, how do you see? Esther, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for Christian. I'm not sure if you have already explained it, sorry, but what is the stage of development of the platform? I mean, have you already developed and being used and tested in the case studies, or?
Yes, we did. So we developed the platform and tested it the last 1.5 years. So now we have data in the platform from 2,500 households that went through it in 3 different countries. And at the end of the project, the platform in its current status is in a way finished, but of course we have many ideas how to develop it further. And we also luckily got some funding in Austria, where we are now able to integrate this platform with smart meter reading. So as it is now, people would need to read their electricity meters themselves, which on the one hand is interesting because they then, by doing that alone, they get a better understanding of their electricity consumption. But on the other hand, this is also prone to a lot of errors. So we see a lot of wrong numbers there. And if you could get it from smart meters directly, that would improve that, but that would also take away this aspect that we suspect is also quite helpful. So we would need to come up with a way to communicate that back. And we are also planning to hopefully, through collaboration with, for example, other electricity providers or municipalities, to set up more campaigns in the future that collect data from more countries so that we could feed our machine learning algorithms with more data than 2,500 households, which is in a way okay, but it would be much more helpful if we had 10 times, 100 times as many participants.
But is it right now the platform is open source? I mean, is like can we access to this platform, or is it?
Well, it's not 100% open source, but it's open to like build new campaigns on it. So we collaborate with the programmers of the platform to set up, if there's an interest, we can set up new campaigns, and it wouldn't require the same amount of investment like developing the platform did.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thank you. It's really interesting, the project and the interventions and the data that you have collected. So congrats.
Thank you
for this.
Thank you, Esti. Gerard, maybe if you want to ask your question, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. I want to ask a question to Christian. So mainly it's about your findings in the analysis of the behavior of the users. So one of the problems or the topics that you want to solve is a bit the peak shaving, but across different countries. This is something I did. So I've been working with peak shaving, but not working with several countries at once. You are finding some hourly shift of these peaks according to, because you were talking about difference in culture behavior across different countries. So you are finding some differences in the energy consumption by cultural or scheduled time from the.
Well, the peak shaving was just a side focus of the project, and we only looked at that in Norway because in all of the other participating countries, people don't have really access to the hourly electricity consumption data. So in Norway, we have the special situation that people have hourly electricity tariffs. So they pay for the hours they use electricity in, which was not the case in all of the other countries we were in. And that also means that Norway has an infrastructure where people via apps can actually access this information. So they can see how much electricity did I use yesterday between 7 and 8. And this information is not available in the other countries, or it's really hard to find. So for that one, we only focused on Norway, and that alone says already a lot about cultural differences. And then just to tell an anecdote, when we tried to roll out our platform campaign in Turkey, our Turkish partner said this won't work in Turkey. People don't have any relation to their electricity consumption, and I couldn't believe it. I said, okay, we try. And then we rolled it out to several million customers of a large electricity provider, and we got 10 people that registered for the campaign, and none of them delivered a single meter reading. And that is simply because people have no idea where electricity meters are and how to read them, because they are somewhere outside their apartments and they don't have to care about it because electricity prices in Turkey are heavily subsidized for political reasons. So that was a massive cultural difference. And then we have also tried to recruit people in Italy, and there we just ran into problems with like trusting anything that looks like an authority. So if you try to recruit people as an electricity provider or as a municipality in Italy, you have a much harder time than if you do that in Norway, for example, where there's a high level of trust in such institutions. And these differences we found in the project, and they are really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's also good to have this link being done between data, what data do we need also to change the behavior, and how the cultural differences between countries are also really very impacting the campaigns and the data collection. It's really interesting. I don't know if anyone else has questions. Otherwise, I think we can have one country perspective from the Tlin region. So Thomas, if you want to start your presentation on Tlin's perspective on energy saving measures, the floor is yours. It's not full screen.
I was muted.
Okay.
Now
Yeah.
It should be okay. So can you see the presentation on
Yes.
full screen now? Yeah.
Yes, perfectly. Thanks.
Firstly, I would like to thank you, Christian, for his outstanding presentation. I was listening to that with holding my breath, because his experience with scaling up the energy savings on the international level is actually extraordinary. So thank you for being with you here. Just speaking about the regional perspective and what scaling up for us means, it actually means to extending our experience that we have from the last 17 years on both local and regional level. We are actually the energy agency established in 2006 as the regional energy agency. We are from the Zlín region, which is the eastern part of the Czech Republic. You can see we have almost 600,000 inhabitants. And as the regional energy agency, we to scale up both on region and local level, we work on a basis of some documents that were approved by the regional council. which sets the pillars that we work on. Among them, a balanced mix of resources belong, increasing the energy efficiency, development of the network infrastructure, support for research, development and innovation, and increasing of energy safety. On basis of these pillars, we have elaborated our own action plan for the region that is working with both local and regional level. And there are 5 priorities. Support for efficient use of energy in buildings owned by the Zlin region, support for efficient use of energy in the region, promoting the use of renewable, secondary and prospective energy sources, increasing security and reliability of energy supply, and measures to support the implementation of the action plan. Just I will not be long with my presentation. I would like to introduce each measure one by one, just with the scale that we are doing that and one short example. So for example, for the support for efficient use of the energy buildings owned by the Zlin region, we have the long time database of energy management since 2006. And the records of a database are based only energy consumption, monitoring gas, electricity, water, and heat. And on basis of this energy management, which is not provided only for more than 100 organizations established by the Zlin region, but also for more than 40 municipalities, we have a basis for better decision making regarding the measures that we can do for particular institutions or municipalities. So now, for example, the result of this measure is just related to one operational program that we work with, 165 projects initiated by us with total investment 2.17 billion Czech crowns, which is approximately 83.5 million euros. The second measure is support for efficient use in energy of use of energy in the Zlin region. So I will not read all of them, just to show you one example of that, what we mean with that. So we have a great experience with working with municipalities in our region. There are more than 300 municipalities. And since we were established for so long time ago, the mayors and the representatives of the municipalities are coming to us actually every day with the needs they have. So for example, they come to us with the old building of municipal hall or the school, as you can see on the picture on the left upper side. And we just trying to help them and support them with combining our experience with the energy auditors, with project designers. So we just try to tailor a solution for them, just for the needs they have and for the money they can just get from external sources. And the result of the process you can see on the right bottom corner. The third measure is promoting the use of renewable energy sources, secondary and prospective energy sources. So just coming to an example, how we scale up to municipalities or other organizations. For example, in a hospital in the town Uherské Hradiště, there was a waste incinerator with a capacity of 350 tons per year. And we have made some evaluation. We found resources from national programs that could replace such incinerator with some new, more ecological, with a higher capacity, and just in the scale that the hospital can afford with the money they have. And the result is just a new incinerator for 1,000 tons per year. The fourth measure, increasing security and reliability of energy supply. So just I will skip to one example of many that we participate at. In the towns of Slavičín or Brumov-Bylnice, which are the smaller towns within the Zlin region, they have approximately 10,000 inhabitants. We help to develop a boiler rooms on biomass and replace them with that are replaced actually with old on fossil fuels. And during the process, we also managed to establish let's say the supply chain with just making agreements from the Slovakian suppliers of wood chips. So it was contributory in many ways. One of them was just a more ecological source of heat. Another is just strengthening the local and regional ties with regions bordering with the Zlín region. And the 5 measure that I will just make a short hint at is the measures to support the implementation of action plans. There are many of them: workshops, meetings, roundtables, working groups on a regional level with politicians, with the representative of companies, municipalities, energy auditors, and so on. Well, we made them many of them. There are tens a year with I say hundreds of participants during the year. So I promised to be short. So that was all for the presentation, and I'm ready to answer the questions if there are some.
Thank you, Thomas. So now I'll open the floor for questions. Unfortunately, our partner from the Regional Development Fund of Crete is not present today, so we will not have the second regional perspective, but we can still open the floor for questions. I also prepared some Slido questions to also. Yes, Shah, you please go ahead.
Thomas, you have presented that you are making a really good work in evolving all this, in promoting all this initiative. How are you making a prioritization? Because I assume that you have many projects, the finance that you have is limited. So then how you make your, how you prioritize some projects among the others?
Actually, we would like to satisfy all that are coming to us, you know. So I would say we are working on a basis of the priorities of the Zlín region. So we are communicate with the Zlín region what are the priorities of particular departments of the Zlín region regional office. So there is some list of prioritized project and less prioritized project. So on this side, it's easier. And regarding the municipal level, we actually really want to satisfy them all that are coming to us. Sometimes it is not easy. We are just hiring more people to be online with the request, but we try not to refuse anyone, which is not easy sometimes, but I think we, to some extent, still manage.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. So keeping an eye on the time, I don't think we will have time to go through the Slido questions, but maybe I have a follow-up question for you, Thomas. After Christian's presentation, how do you see the feasibility, of campaigns, behavioral change in your region, in your country? Because we heard there's some really cultural differences between countries. So maybe you have some reflection on that from your side, since you have a lot of experience with working also with municipalities and.
Yeah, well, that's not easy to answer.
Yeah.
The experience from the last 16 years is showing us that the change in the mindset of people is slowly coming, but only very slowly, actually. And I think the part of that is on account that the old people are leaving and the young people are just growing up. And then when you try to persuade or gently persuade people on some activities or changing their mind, you need to do it by small steps. If you make a big step, they wouldn't understand and they would refuse. So I know it's quite a general answer, but based on the experience we have, we can't come with something very new and revolutionary at the moment, and we need to give step by step.
Thank you. I think it's also the case in different in different countries, or big changes are usually come with more resistance, let's say. I don't know if Gérard or Christian, you want to, maybe Thomas also, if you want to have a closing remark for this today's meeting. The floor is yours if you do. Otherwise, I can.
Yeah, no, it's the point of the three presentations that we have been made is that things are being done. So we just have to keep pushing. As Thomas said, this is something that we should do it step by step, because instead we are getting, and I think that you choose the right words, Nadesh, a lot of resistance from the general public. So step by step, changing things, proving that things are working, and make people more aware of the situations they are, in order to allow them to make a decision making according the reality and knowing what are they doing.
Thank you, Gérard. I don't know if Christian, you want to add something?
Yes, maybe. Well, looking at the different presentations we had today, I think it is interesting to see how much lies there in the future and learning from the bigger and bigger data sets that we collect. And if we can make sure that we also add something on people's choices and not only on use data of buildings, then I think we can actually get around a bit of this resistance problem by targeting better who gets what kind of message. Because what we see in our project is that people react quite differently to different types of messages. Some people are really turned off by being part of a competition, whereas others are motivated by that. Some people want to learn from others. Some people don't want others to tell them anything about their electricity consumption. So finding out who is likely to respond positively to this or to that is something that we probably will see even more in the future.
Thank you very much for your insights, Christian. So just to close the session, first of all, I want to really thank deeply our presenters today. Thank you, Christian, Gérard, and Thomas, for accepting the invitation and giving very interesting presentations. Thank you to the participants also. I'm informing you that the next stakeholder forum will be on energy communities, and we will keep you informed about the date. And I think it will be in December, but we don't know yet. So stay in touch with ePLANET, so you have our info here. And just before you leave, I would ask you to please fill this form. It's a satisfaction form. It's also very interesting for us to have your feedbacks on the stakeholder forums, so that we can improve them from one to the others. And with that, I will close the recording and close the session. And don't forget to respond to the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nadesh, please.
Yes.
Just if you stop recording, it's okay.
Yes.
But could we stay